talking about small-sided games today and some of the benefits of doing small-sided games in season. So welcome back to the Coach's Edge podcast. Excited to get after it with you for a few minutes. And small-sided games, breakdown drills, whatever you want to call them, they've been around since the beginning of time. Obviously, people talk about them more often. I think it's just a technology thing. It's easier to share drills and information than it was in the past. But for the most part, people have been doing 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, advantage, disadvantage, odd numbers for as long as basketball's been around. But the more that we learn about learning styles and the more that we understand the learning process of decision making, I think it just makes it even more vital that we use small-sided games throughout the course of a season, not just in the off season. So as I think about what are the main reasons why we should work on small-sided games in season, two things come to mind. One, with small-sided games, it's allowing us to get a higher amount of repetitions with the specific skills that, here's the two, translate specifically to how we want to play in a game, right? So as a coach, giving your players small-sided games that are specific to how you want to play in the game, your offensive actions are going to do both of those things, right? The decision making, if you run a horns ball screen set, you can make ball screens set up in horns, small-sided game out of it. That could be 3-on-3 building into a 4-on-3 or a 4-on-4 type situation. If you're on a sideline ball screen, that could look for like a 2-on-2 into a 3-on-3, looking for the tag and the roller. If you run a lot of pass cut type options, you can set up 2-on-2 and 3-on-3 actions like that. So the ability for us to use small-sided games when time is limited throughout the season to be able to get a higher amount of repetitions, which is going to improve our skill development. It's going to improve our decision making while also getting the practice time of not just running a 5-on-5 set, but still complementing the actions that we want to run throughout the course of the game. You're getting both of those things in. As you think about small-sided games, there's obviously the benefit of decision making and just going against bodies, right? Because the defense could be early, could be late. There's going to be players that are quicker, players that are slower, players that are bigger, players that are smaller. And so being able to work offensively on the decision making within those drills is obviously really, really important. Players are getting more touches and more repetitions than simply going 5-on-5. Not all, there's a lot of full court, small-sided games, but one of the reasons that we do 3-on-3, right, is essentially a small-sided game. We should play 3-on-3 at our youth basketball league, but it's half court. And so a lot of the small-sided games that I've seen, because they're half court, it's just like rep, 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 fast, 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 not even transitioning from one side of the court to the other, although that's a huge part of the game, don't get me wrong. But if there's a specific action that you run within your offense, you're able to get so many repetitions in a certain amount of time. There's also a simplicity to it. If you have a specific action, maybe you're running dribble drive offense, you can create a drill that is dribble drive, and it's 1-on-1, and then it's 2-on-2, and then it's 3-on-3. We're making some things simpler for our players by putting them in specific situations that we want them to make decisions and continue to work on their skills. Again, one of the reasons we do our 3-on-3 league, same thing with the small-sided games. There's more space. A small-sided game, you don't have 5 players out on each team out on the court. When you have 1, 2, 3 players, sometimes even 4, there's a little bit more space, right? Which is not only going to increase the amount of time players are going to be able to touch the basketball, but being able to improve and work on their game because there's a little more space on there is really good for a lot of players, especially our youth players who, let's be honest, they need more space because their skills and their athleticism haven't caught up. The ability to teach the game very specifically to the actions of course, that's another great reason that we want to use small-sided games. And it allows players to be able to be in another person's shoes. When we run our camps, like say we're doing like a guard post type drill, unless like it's very specific and time is limited, I like to have our point guards be, the post player, even if that's not going to be their role on their specific team. I like to have somebody handle the ball, even if handling the ball is not going to be their specific role on the team. And doing some small-sided games allows players to play multiple positions, if you so choose, and to understand what it's like to be in someone else's shoes, even if that's not what they're going to be doing specifically in a game. It gives us the ability to, one, learn from one another, but also gain a better understanding. Oh, this is what, when I'm trying to pass to the post, this is a little harder than I thought. I didn't realize it. I thought when I was posting up, I should get the basketball easily every time. Now I'm seeing, okay, there's a lot of ball pressure on the wing. Maybe I need to do a better job posting up because it's not as open as I thought I was. So being in other people's shoes is really, really vital as well. Brianna Finch, Boston University, she has a cool document on Twitter, Google, something like, if you search it, she's got some really good things on small-sided games and what she does. I've looked at some of her stuff. It's probably a little bit more advanced because she's a Division I coach than some of the stuff I'll do with our youth and our high school players, but that's a really good resource as well. And then the thing with small-sided games is it allows us to put in specific rules or specific constraints that complement what we're trying to execute back into the game. Like if we're doing a specific drill on the left wing, a lot of times, if it's like a dribble drive series, we'll take the opposite lane line and we'll almost wall that off and say, okay, you can't go across the opposite lane line during this 2-on-2 dribble drive series. And really the only time you'd cross in front of the rim would be an across the rim type finish. That would be it, right? Or driving across the rim and then the big from the opposite block floats under the other side and we work on that pass across. We're able to change the space on the court to give the constraint and some of the specifics. So even though there's more space out there because there's not 10 players, we can also make less space out there because we know once we get back into the game, there are going to be 10 players out on the court. So we can say, hey, we're still playing 2-on-2, a lot of touch points, a lot of repetitions, a lot of teaching. But at the same time, this part is out of bounds, right? You could put certain spots out on the court and say, okay, we always want to have one player in each corner when we're doing this drill, right? We always want to have, one player floating from the post, and you can make some of those specific rules as well, utilizing the space. Other rules that you can make are dribble count, as far as how many dribbles they can do, or dribble time, right? So if somebody has the basketball, there's only a certain amount of time they can spend dribbling. Or if somebody catches the ball, you've heard the 1-second rule, pass, drive, shot, but you got to make that decision quick. So there's many different rules. We could even go no dribble at all, especially if we're a team that's working on more off-ball screens. I really like doing that in the beginning, really trying to incorporate, okay, we got a player on the top, we have a player on the wing, we have a player in the corner, and then maybe we have a coach passing on the left wing, and we're working on setting a down screen, a double stagger, flare screens. We can go slips into the post. The coach is the passer on the left wing, and those 3 players are playing 3-on-3 on their side. And we say, hey, no dribble. Or hey, you got a 1 dribble to, if it's a hard closeout, rip it, try to get to the basket, or a time frame. You could do that with having a player on offense, defense in the corner, a player on offense and defense on the wing, and then maybe the coach is up top and you want to run zoom action. So, okay, all right, let's run our zoom action, and that player up top with the ball, or the coach who doesn't have a defender on him, is able to make that initial, after that down screen happens from wing to corner, then the coach can, okay, did somebody slip or curl off the first screen? They can make that pass. Okay, we're going to run a traditional zoom, so it's down screen into the handoff. The coach can do that, and then they kind of get out of the play, and then they can play 2-on-2 out of. We actually have a full series of Zoom small-sided games at coachesedge.coach that go from 1-on-1 in different locations, 2-on-2 in different locations, and then it builds up into 3-on-3. That would be an example of using small-sided games if you run Zoom offense specific to your team style. That's at coachesedge.coach. So, I mean, we can run off ball. We can run the combo like a zoom or a pistol action. You can work on your ball screen offense. If you run dribble drive, we also have a full dribble drive course of small-sided games, of different PDFs that you can use, video course as far as like seeing some of the practice and some of the game film of dribble drive, and you incorporate that into small-sided games. One of my buddies down in Jacksonville City in Florida, he has a drill where the offense and defense start near the block, and then they have cones that are kind of in the seam slot area. And when he says go, the defensive player has to run around the farther cone. That would be, say, 4 or 5 feet beyond the 3-point line. And the ball handler, who starts with the ball at the block, he or she has to dribble outside the closest cone, which would be, say, a foot outside the 3-point line. So he says go, and they both take off. They're sprinting. They both sprint around that cone. This is giving the offense player a slight advantage because even though they had the dribble, they had less distance to run. And now the defense is somewhat trailing. You could go from that drill into 1-on-1, and then you run dribble drive. So what are locations that we want to work on? Some of those drive kick defensive reads. Maybe it's a player in the opposite corner. Maybe it's a player in the same side corner. Maybe it's putting that second player down the post. And so as the basketball is being driven across the front of the rim, working on that post player moving to the other side of the block. You get the idea, and then you can build 3-on-3. It's a simple way to use dribble drive offense into a small-sided game. So there's so many great things for us to do with small-sided games. And one of the reasons why I think that we can do more of that in our practices in season is because time is so limited for us to work specifically on our skills that we might be taking away from the gameplay and the offensive actions that we also want to have if we just did it in one big bucket. Now, you know me, you've been listening to the podcast for a while. I mean, skill development is what I do, and I love like the footwork, the body position, the hand placement, the repetitions to build the confidence and to measure improvement. But man, I love me some 1-on-1. I love some small-sided games and putting players in specific positions to be able to compete against other people, to learn from other people, and to be able for us as coaches to be able to get a lot of repetitions from the skill development standpoint, from the decision-making standpoint, while giving yourself the offense and the how you want to execute throughout the course of the game is a great combination. The only thing that you could get in trouble with as a coach, I think, is if you have some small-sided games that you really like, but they don't complement how you play in a game, right? I've seen this go into practice where it's like, okay, here's a small-sided transition drill, working on pushing and working on playing fast, but your team doesn't play fast. In fact, you actually want to play slow, and that is how you play an actual game. So what's the point of doing this transition drill? It doesn't complement the small-sided game, doesn't complement how you actually play. And so there's so many great things out on the internet, podcasts, YouTube, Twitter. You just have to find what works for you, how the skill development piece complements what you're going to do in a game, how the small-sided games complement what you're doing to game. Because there's so many great resources out there. It can be easy to get overwhelmed and put a bunch of things in that you like. Gotta make sure that it complements how you're actually trying to execute in the game. So thank you for listening to the Coach's Edge podcast. Thanks for checking us out. If you've been watching this on YouTube, subscribe, rate, review, share it out with somebody. whatever you can do, this is free, but we're giving back to the game of basketball and those that are checking us out. Excuse me, my throat. I'm still getting over a cold, a little bit congested. I love the game. I love teaching the game. I love sharing the game. I love continuing to learn the game. And if there's some topics that you want to talk about, to touch on, we'd be happy to dig more into it. So reach out, contact at kramerbasketball.com. Kramer B-ball is Twitter. At Coach's Edge 1 is our coachesedge.coach Twitter handle. A lot of great stuff on our Instagram page. It's Kramer_basketball on Instagram as well. Thanks for listening to the Coach's Edge podcast. Get after it today.